Show. It's a people problem on the Michigan Business Network, and this is your host, Fathy Shetiah. I am thrilled to have Hannah Winwright with me today to talk a little bit more about cultural intelligence, but more importantly, a few months back, she took a trip that was not really on her radar screen, and she was, I guess, honored, blessed, fortunate. Tell us a little bit more about that, Hannah. Tell us.
Absolutely. So in this past October, which would be October of 2025, I had the opportunity to go to Egypt, specifically Cairo, Egypt, for a conference. So that was a really amazing opportunity. We got to see a lot of different things there, and today we'll talk about a little bit of the cultural aspect of what I saw in Egypt, as well as the conference itself.
So Hannah, this is it's great to hear that. What was your first thing that came to mind when you learned that there's a conference and you're invited to go?
So I didn't really know what to expect from the conference. We have our office over in Egypt, and I know that in the past they've done interpretation for conferences, and all I seem to really know about it is that often those came about last minute. So interpretation would not be needed the day before. Oh, we need Russian interpretation, we need Spanish interpretation, we need Arabic interpretation. So I think that kind of my first take on going to a conference in Egypt was that things would probably come about in a manner that might be a little bit more chaotic and last minute than what I'm used to.
So that's an excellent point. So tell us, how is that different, just like you mentioned, from what you're used to on a personal level and on a professional level here?
Absolutely. So when I like to plan anything, I try to plan it months in advance. I want to make sure that my plans are cemented months in advance, and if I'm going to be scheduling interpretation for a conference or translation for a large document, I like to be aware of the need to work on that months in advance. And that's really what I prefer, and that's how I find we have the most success confirming really good qualified interpreters for those settings. But I also knew that things might look a little bit different in other countries, so I was excited at the opportunity to see how that runs outside of my comfort zone.
So tell us a little bit, how did you prepare for the trip? I mean, knowing a little bit about what you know about the culture and the differences, how did cultural intelligence help you, or did you really prepare?
Yeah, good question. I used my friend Google to see some different options on things to do. When I think of cultural intelligence, I know that there isn't really, I will never be an expert in every culture, and I'm never going to understand why everyone is doing everything at any point in time. And that's okay. It's not our role or responsibility to know why everyone does everything that they do. But when I look at myself and I see myself in other cultures, I know that I need to be able to adapt to those cultures. I need to be able to understand that the things that I do might not be the things that everyone does, and that's okay. I think I said this a few different times, but when I was preparing to go to the conference, I would be told, oh, this is gonna run differently in Egypt, you're gonna handle things differently here, it's not gonna be maybe the way that you want it. It's kind of a stupid analogy, but I compared it to if there is like a spider in my own house versus if there's a spider outside. So when there's a spider in my house, I want it out. I don't want it there. So like when I'm in my culture, I want things the way that I want them. But if there's a spider outside, it can exist there. That's where it belongs. So when I'm outside of my own culture, I want to be able to coexist with the things that are going on around me rather than needing to make everything my way just so I feel comfortable and in control.
That's an interesting point, an interesting analogy. I guess most of us really look at their own culture in their own unique way, and obviously everyone thinks that their own culture is the best culture and whatever. But how did you make that adjustment with the spider analogy? For example, you were there for a period of time, everything seemed different, but yet the same, people still do similar things. So how did you cope with that?
Yeah, I mean, at the conference itself that we were able to go to there and had that opportunity, there were people there from US. Obviously, we were in Egypt, so there were a lot of folks from Egypt there. There were also representation from Jordan, Algeria, Cameroon, I think some places in South Africa, as well as Russia, and just so many different countries. So obviously everyone there has a different culture, a different background, a different reason to do the things that they do. And I think that as we interact with other cultures, we shouldn't be wanting to say, oh, you know, this person just did this thing that I don't like, and so I don't like them, or they're different than me, because that's really saying that our culture is the best culture or the only culture, which is really silly because it's not. And you're interacting with so many other cultures there. You want to be able to look at and respect those cultures and learn about them and recognize them for what they are, even if they're different than you.
What is the biggest one thing that you can say to our listeners? When you go to Egypt or when you go somewhere else, really make sure that you're doing X. What would that be? If there's anything that comes to mind, I'm sure our listeners would love to hear that.
Something that I really enjoyed about being in Egypt, a lot of people may have the perception of, oh, if you're traveling internationally, especially me, like I traveled there alone, I was on the plane by myself and things like that, going through major airports and things like that. I think a lot of people thought that I might feel unsafe or I might feel worried to be there on my own. And ultimately, the thing that I think I want to share is that I felt safe and really happy the entire time to be there. I think that in any place, wherever you are, you want to recognize that there could be a danger or an issue, like you need to be aware of that. But I think that what I would share is that as long as you are taking care of yourself and using basic precautions wherever you are, everything there felt safe and I was really happy to be there. And ultimately, I felt very welcomed by everyone that I met.
One thing that most people have to ask us, did you see the pyramids?
Yes, I was able to see the pyramids and the Sphinx one of the days that I was there. So that was a really amazing experience.
Did you walk down the streets outside the business world? Did you see the actual real world? Did you get down and dirty and from a cultural perspective, seeing people and walking around people?
So one thing that I think maybe I didn't know and maybe a lot of people don't know about traveling to Egypt or Cairo specifically would be the sheer size of the city. I looked up after because I was there and I was like, this is crazy. There's so many people here. There's so much going on. And I looked it up and it's actually larger than LA. So there's so many people that are just in that area itself that they're expanding and building more. It's really amazing to see that. And another thing that struck me when I was there is just, again, the sheer volume of people and the volume of places. So you would be driving around and you would see like a KFC or a Pizza Hut or a Dunkin' Donuts and certainly McDonald's. And that to me is really fun because you're used to those things in this environment, but then you see them in such a different environment and you see the food being different. And it creates a really unique experience for you to see that in a different place. And also they have so many, like any type of cultural food or experience that you would like to have is there. So it's a little silly, but one of my favorite foods that I had there, I love sushi. And on one of the days that we were there, we ordered sushi to our office. We were able to eat that. And I was really impressed with how good it was. So there really is everything there and the experiences there are phenomenal. Another unique thing, at least to me, again, I'm from a very small town, so any large city is going to look a little bit different and strange to me just because I'm purely not used to it. In the homes, in the apartments, is where many businesses are. So when you look at, like for me, what I would call like an apartment building, in that apartment building you would have a pharmacy or you would have a massage parlor or a language agency or a daycare. So any of those things can be found in homes, which is really different maybe from what I'm used to, but it created a really cool environment and it was a really interesting thing to learn when I was there.
One last thing, and I know we're almost running out of time, but we got to touch on you riding a horse there. Tell us about the horse riding there.
Yes, I was, one thing that I desperately wanted to do and I was so excited to have the opportunity to do as well, was to ride horses there. So I had knee surgery and I was not able to ride the horse very effectively when I was there, but I was able to get up on it and go out there, and that was probably my favorite part of the tourist things that I was able to do when I was there.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a true pleasure. It's your host, Fathy Shetiah. It's a People Problem on the Michigan Business Network.